I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of Manassas Park Governing Body for June the 2nd. A couple of changes. We have one item. Item 8A has a deletion of one of the properties. The third property down listed in the motion is now off the list. And the item agenda number 6C is being pulled out of consent agenda and will be addressed under new business as item 8D for purposes of those who are tracking the agenda. With those adjustments, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all is in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. If we could rise for a moment of silence, please. And tonight we're joined by a scout, Braden. Braden, would you come up and lead us in the pledge? So a moment of silence, please, then Braden will lead us in the pledge. Okay, Braden.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us tonight.
Wens, W-E-N-S. Yeah. No, C-E.
W-E-N-C-E. Next item is citizens' time. Do we have anyone signed up who'd like to address the governing body tonight? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll move on. Our next item is a public hearing. We have a public hearing on school board applicants. I will declare the public hearing open. We have 3 candidates that have been or have expressed interest in serving that have been interviewed by the governing body. Is there anyone here who'd like to address the governing body on the school board applicants? Please come up and give us your name and your address.
My name is Emily Hsu. I live in 9306 Eagle Court. Good evening, City Council and Manassas Park residents. My name is Emily Hsu, and I am one of Hong Shu's daughters. I'm currently a junior at the high school, and I can accredit my success in school to my dad, who has always been so dedicated to my education. When I was a freshman, my dad pushed me to challenge myself by enrolling in advanced placement chemistry. I failed the first test and immediately asked to withdraw from the class. He sat me down that day that I got my score and encouraged me to continue and challenge myself. Every week, he would help me to learn the concepts so that I could catch up in class. By the end, I passed the class and received a 5 on the AP exam. There is no way I could have done that without my dad's help. His drive to challenge me has prompted me to improve, and I know that this drive will only bring help to the school division's success. His dedication even extends to students that he does not know personally. Recently, a student at Nova found herself in the position in which she was told she could not graduate despite meeting all the graduation requirements. When my dad heard about this, he took extra measures to lend her a helping hand. Because of his help, the student graduated with the rest of Nova's class of 2015 and was able to continue her educational path. From the very beginning, my dad has always been extremely dedicated to education. The impact that education has had on his life has influenced him to push me, my sisters, and other students towards their full academic potentials. This passion that he has for education gives him the skill set and dedication to bring the Manassas Park school system to reach its full potential. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing on the school board appointments.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. And for the record, the appointments will be made at our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is the 16th, right? So we have 3 applicants and we have 2 openings, so that will be made that night. We don't have any recognition tonight. Consent agenda consists of approval of minutes for the meeting on May 19th and 26th, and the recommendation of David Rhodes to the Board of Equalization. This is a recommendation to the Prince William Circuit Court. Governing body's pleasure on approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 6C will be addressed as item 8D. As I said, we'll take it up as new business. On to unfinished business, the first is the ordinance on the approval of the tax rate. City Manager, anything you'd like to bring up?
Well, the ordinance actually is just for the real estate tax rate, the personal property tax rate, machinery and tools, and public service utilities. As a part of this agenda item, though, you do also have a summary of various other taxes and fees, and I know there were a few of these that I believe a few of you wanted to have some discussion about. So just depending on where that discussion goes, we may amend the recommendation here.
We have a staff recommendation. The draft ordinance is before us. It specifically talks about a real estate tax rate of $1.55 per hundred valuation, personal property tax rate of $3.50 per hundred valuation, machinery and tools tax of $3.50 per hundred evaluation, public service utilities rate to be set in accordance with Title 58.1-2606 Code of Virginia. The other components are not a part of the ordinance, but as the city manager indicated, she provided them should there be a desire for us to talk about any of those. What's the governing body's pleasure?
Motion to approve as presented.
We have a motion to approve as presented. Is there a second?
I'll make a second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I would like to discuss my personal opinion on the other taxes. I think I've always communicated this very clearly. I personally am opposed to the property taxes on automobile, and also I'm opposed to the decal. The decal fee was a mechanism to enforce payment of the personal property tax. But I think over the years with the change in the processes, it is no longer required, and we still continue to impose a decal fee because it's become a source of revenue. If you really think about it, the decal fee was meant to recover the cost of with the stickers and the postage and the processing. But nowadays, with the change in the process, we have permanent stickers, and then on top of it, the property tax fees actually gets included in the personal property tax bills which go out. So there really isn't any cost associated, and if any property owner, if they lost a sticker, then they have to pay $1 to get that sticker. So all the cost is borne by the people. So I think we should do away with the city decals and not even consider about the increase. So that's just my personal opinion.
Any other item of discussion?
Yes, my personal opinion also is to not increase the decal fee. I'd like to see the city move to a one-time life of the vehicle assessment, a $25, whatever the life of the vehicle is, not a yearly increase or a yearly collection of the fee. So I would like to see the city move to getting rid of the yearly fee every year, moving to a one-time lifetime of the vehicle. And that's my position on that.
Any other discussion?
Yes, I'd like to post this on the reasons of the increase of the cigarette tax. It's an increase of 15 cents. But unlike the other taxes, this is a tax that's consumer-driven. And my argument is that to expect to rely on the revenue of this increase is nearing being unrealistic, because you can have a shift of consumer behavior due to this increase of the cigarette tax, in which smokers will now just go to our neighboring jurisdictions and purchase cigarettes versus purchasing them within our city. And it's simple microeconomics. When you raise the price, you shift demand, and especially when there's choices out there, cheaper choices, alternatives that the smokers will pursue. So I think it's an unrealistic, or maybe a high expectation, to rely on this revenue of this increase of the cigarette tax. Therefore, I'm opposing it.
Any other discussion?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to go on record. I'm opposed to the increase in the decal fees. I also oppose the increase in the cigarette tax. I'm certainly not a smoker, but I can see where we might lose, as Preston said, consumers purchasing their cigarettes in Manassas Park if the cigarette tax goes up. It's just a stone's throw over to Prince William County, and they can go over there and purchase their cigarettes.
Any other? Okay, I'm going to suggest then that for purposes of this discussion, since we have the ordinance that doesn't talk to any of the things that we've just had discussion about, I'm going to ask that a friendly amendment be applied that says that the vote is only about the items that are the 4 items that are discussed in the ordinance, and then I want to come back and we're going to take line by line the things that are on the summary sheet and we'll vote them up or down. Will that work for everybody?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so the vote that I'm about to call is not about the things that are on page 22 of your agenda that are the summary of various taxes and fees. It is only about the items that are listed on page 21 under Ordinance 15-1700, setting of tax rate, and it is the real estate tax rate, the personal property tax rate, machinery and tools tax, and the public service utility rate in accordance with state code. All those in favor of that ordinance signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, I'd like to go through, and we have taken care of, by that action, the items on page 22 that are the real estate sales tax and the property tax. Those are covered in what we just did. We have a local sales and use tax of 1%. Is there any desire to make a change to that? Then let's have a motion to approve and set that tax at 1%.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second in discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Meals tax, 4%. Is there a motion to accept 4% as meals tax?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second in discussion.
One discussion point, I forgot to point out earlier. Julia confirmed all current rates, the current rates for meals tax, transient occupancy, cigarette tax, and vehicle decal fees for surrounding jurisdictions. And that was in front of you tonight, too, if you just want to use it as a quick reference while you're looking through these.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on meals tax. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We have the proposed cigarette tax, an increase of 15 cents to 65 cents per pack. Governing body's pleasure on that recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
2 noes. Abstentions? Motion carries. Recordation and wheels tax, 0.083 per hundred of assessed value. Governing body's pleasure.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Automobile rental tax, 4%. Governing body's pleasure.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Deeds tax, 50 cents per $1,000. Governing body's pleasure.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Business license tax for contractors, 10 cents per hundred. Retail, 15 cents per hundred. Repairs, 18 cents per hundred. Professional real estate, 35 cents per hundred. Governing body's pleasure.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
One oppose.
1 opposed. Abstentions? Motion carries. Motor vehicles tax, or motor vehicles license tax. And we will take those, I guess,
All of them.
we can take all of them. The cars and trucks are $27.50, motorcycles $12.50, trailers and campers $10, transfers $2, duplicate decal $5. The rates of increase are for cars and trucks $2.50, motorcycle increase $2.50, trailers and campers $2, transfer fee increase of $1, and duplicate decal increase of $2. Governing body's pleasure.
I'll make the motion, but I'm going to oppose it.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
One.
No.
Opposed.
Okay, wait a minute then. All those in favor, hands in the air. Those opposed? Motion fails. All right, we have to have a value. So what is the proposed alternate value? I need a motion for proposed alternate value.
Propose for keeping the rates the same as prior year.
So the increase is zeroed out. So the cars and trucks would be $25.50. The motorcycles would be $10.50. trailers and campers would be $8, transfers $1, and decal would be $3. That's the nature of your motion.
I think it's actually 25 and 10 would be the first.
I'm sorry, correct, 25 and 10 to 50 cents. Thank you.
I'll second the motion not to change the decal fee, even though I'm opposed to the decal fees.
We have a motion and a second. Other discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Raise your hand. Abstentions? Motion carries at the current year rate. All right, that takes care of that. Now we have an ordinance approval for the 2016 budget. We have a city manager. Anything you want to bring up?
Yes. Okay, so this is the budget as presented with the summary changes that Gary had been providing. And the summary changes you can see on page 26 of your agenda packet. What I have also given you recommendations on the agenda item are for certain eliminations and one potential addition to capital projects. So if you do adopt this budget, the recommendation would be to adopt it with those eliminations and the possibility of the addition for the skate park, depending on your pleasure, and with the summary changes listed by Gary.
We have a staff recommendation. What's governing body's pleasure?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to make, go ahead, Brian.
Go ahead, please.
I just want to mention a few things. I reviewed this budget, and I looked at the process, and Kim, this is, you did a great job for this budget, and it's not against you, it's really us. I would like our conversations on the budget, our work, to be more public and transparent. And this budget year was a lot of emailing, discussion going on versus work sessions and making it public so that our citizens know exactly what we're thinking, what ideas are on the table, and what our budget's going to look like. So for the next budget going for next year, let's make it more public, more work sessions. It's more work, yes, and more nights we're going to have to spend here, but it's
Preston,
well
we'll
worth
talk
it.
about that later. This is about the dollar value right now. We'll talk about the process in a minute because I want to talk about what we agreed to last night after we do this. We'll
Okay.
bring that up.
Good.
So can we hold on that for a second?
Sure. Go ahead, Brian.
Any other discussion?
So does the motion then includes $120,000 for skate park and capital projects?
As it's written here, that's how I wrote the recommendation, based on what appeared to me to be the consensus at a previous governing body meeting.
Okay. Is there a majority that's going to support this being in?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
Is there a majority that's going to support this being in?
The skate park?
That's going to support the entire budget with the $120,000 for the skate park in?
So we can't do a straw vote. So if you want to make a friendly, or if you want to make an amended motion that would strike the $120,000, now is the time to do so.
I'll propose an amendment to strike the $120,000 for the skate park at this time.
We
Second.
have a motion that would strike the $120,000. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, I do. I understand, that, the skate park actually, it came up, pretty late, we don't have all the information to make a educated decision. But this has been an ongoing, request, by most teenagers who live in Manassas Park. And I see a lot of teenagers, actually skating right at the city center where the empty shops are there. We used to have a skate ramp, before the new community center was built. Ever since the new community center was built, that skate ramp was basically of not much use. It was kept in storage, and it just basically fell into disrepair and lack of maintenance, so it's not usable. If you remember 2 years ago, dozen or odd, youngsters, they came and approached the city council requesting us to reconsider and building a skate ramp, a skate park. And at that time, I had volunteered to contribute to their fundraising, and I did that. But as we all know, the Parks and Recreation Department director is not feeling well, so this particular project, fell sideways. I have been working with Jace Schwisher and Patricia from Parks and Rec Department, as well as another citizen, Bo Sigrist, and we have, looked at some different options. Some of that information has been shared with you. I think we need to, provide some kind of, guidance. We used, $100,000 as a rough line of a cost estimate, even though, many other skate parks cost almost 5,000 or 6,000, 6 times more than what we have estimated. We just spent, more than $500,000, to repair the Signal Bay Water Park, which is an amenity on the east side of it, which is used by many people. Even though I opposed it, I think we may want to consider, building a skate park. If not, in this budget, at least, we may want to consider it in the next capital expenditure. Along with that, if we want to do any kind of, pre-planning to construct it, we need to set aside certain amount of money for consultation and professional services to, to get, the inputs, and what we can do. So what I sincerely urge is, we keep an open mind and look at, the safety of the youngsters, who want to skate park and who want to skate, and try to include that in our Parks and Recreation capital expenditure.
Any other comments?
Can I just add, I support a skate park. I like the concept of a lesser amount for some design and planning, and it's getting to possibly a separate motion, but.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
It would be great to have a skate park, but this thing took wings way too fast. It went from thinking about it to adding it onto the budget extremely fast. I'm uncomfortable. We had to eliminate a piece of equipment for the fire department, and now we're adding on $120,000 for a skate park. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. This city cannot afford to build a chicken coop, and I mean that. At some point we will have a skate park, but and maybe next year. We will keep revisiting it, but I really don't support that. And it's not that I don't support having a skate park. That'd be a great idea for the kids, but $120,000 after we make an effort to cut over $81,000, then we turn around and we add $120,000. Why did we go through that exercise?
Any other comments? We have a motion and a second before us for deleting the $120,000 skate park. Those who are in favor of deleting the $120,000 skate park, please put your hands in the air. Those opposed? Motion carries. The $120,000 skate park is off the table. Now, back to the main motion. Less the $120,000 skate park, we have an approval of the FY16 budget with the items eliminated that were listed and the skate park revenue not included.
Okay.
A question. How is this impacted by the action just taken relative to fees?
Mm-hmm.
Anything that you approve for capital is going to come from proffer funding. So as far as the fees go, we will look at the budget and need to cut about $30,000 for the decal fees.
So I guess I'm trying to figure out what the budget we're voting on then would be without that.
Like a $76,000 surplus in the general fund, so it won't.
Oh, okay. There's a $76,000 surplus in the general fund in the summary changes, so we'll just have a little bit less of a surplus.
It will be decremented by about $30,000.
When it's in that summary sheet?
Exactly.
Okay, so the general fund surplus that was built in.
On your page 26.
On page 26.
About halfway down, it says
75,479.
FY16 revised budget, excess revenue over expenditures.
So that will be
reduced by $30,000.
$30K.
Okay.
So that number would be basically $45,500. Any other questions? All those in favor, put your hand in the air. Those opposed? Those abstaining? Motion carries with 1 no vote. Next item is a resolution. It is the PRTC Commission Administration and Operating Budget. It is the approval of the dollars that we have out of the 2% motor fuels tax collected in Manassas Park to support the operation of PRTC. What's governing body's pleasure?
So moved?
Second.
Motion and a second, and just for recapping for public record, $13,000 motor fuels tax to PRTC administration, $230,800 for Omnilink, $10,000 for marketing, $2,400 for local capital match, $576,699 for Virginia Railway Express. Total of $832,899 is the value of the motion and the second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Our next item is item 8A. It is the Euclid Avenue Manassas Drive property acquisition. City Attorney, anything you want to bring out?
Yes, sir. The only parcel here that we're absolutely certain we're going to have to use condemnation on is the Stone Ridge 2 parcel. They have not responded. They've stated they're openly opposed to it. So we will be filing tomorrow a certificate of take and depositing the funds with the court. The other three, or the other two, we will not likely have to condemn. You'll note that I removed one of the properties. We have reached agreement with them. That's the Connor Business Center, folks. That property is owned by 5 separate LLCs. Unfortunately, they are single-member LLCs, and one of the gentlemen just passed away just within the last couple of weeks. And I believe another one, I'm not certain if another one has passed away or not, but we're still waiting on some finalization or some documents to finalize it, and that's really just for the title report. But we do have the agreement. Everything looks good there. I've been in contact with their attorney. I don't see any problems. If there are any problems, however, we can bring back a motion to you at your next meeting, and we can go ahead and authorize condemnation, but we shouldn't have a problem. The other 2 parcels, which are the 7-Eleven parcel and then the storage facility parcel, we've been in contact with both of them. We should have agreement. However, the timing was so condensed that we really couldn't get it in time, so we're going to go ahead and ask you to authorize this just in case. We don't anticipate actually filing a certificate of take in either one of these because we do have good faith negotiations ongoing. It's a little costly to file for the condemnation because we have court fees and legal fees and such. So we prefer to go with the arm's length negotiations. Should be able to get there. But those 2 parcels are on here just in case we have to do something between now and your next meeting.
We have a recommendation from the staff to move forward. We have a draft motion before us that authorizes the city's legal counsel to go ahead and file a certificate of take, and it identifies the 3 parcels. What's governing body's pleasure?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Other discussion?
Do we have a map, showing these parcels, just for information?
I could provide the plats that are associated with each one of those to you. You want those separately, or do you want me to bring them up now to look at?
We have those large maps, too, that we brought in during that one meeting.
We have those.
Plans.
So I thought, it says, Schedule C, Schedule, etc. So I was actually hoping to see that as part of the packet. But if you can make it available in the minutes, I'm okay with it, and you can email me those later on.
So you want the, in here, for instance, the first parcel, says Parcel 1 of the Spencer Haskins Estate as shown in the plat attached as Schedule C to yada yada. You want that, because that's a document, it's in the land records. Typically, I bring it up electronically. I have electronic copies I can email to you. If you prefer me to print them out and provide hard copies to everyone, I can do that.
No, I just need a map showing, where all these parcels are. Parcel 1, D1, A1, B.
I can tell you very quickly.
We had a map that was provided by our consultant a meeting ago that shows those parcels clearly. Let's provide that to everybody, please.
And also make it part of the record.
Okay.
So that it's a part of the motion.
is there something separate than the plans that were pulled out, the big plans? Because those are multiple pages. Was there?
There is
I've got
one
the big
document
plans.
that shows
Okay.
all four corners, if you will. And the three that we're talking about need to be highlighted as a part of the motion. That's what he's talking about, off that one sheet,
All
that
right.
one map sheet. Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Prince William County Urban Entitlement Designation for Federal Housing CBDG.
This, we have to fill this out and get this back to them as to whether we want to maintain our current participation in this program. Basically, they get money for us being included in the program, and they put that into the programs that they're already administering, CDBG and home programs. If our citizens apply, they have access to that funding. In the past, sometimes that money has not been spent on our citizens, and then it gets thrown into the pot with them. We have some options for future years if we stay a part of this program. We have some options on redirecting that funding if that's what we decide we want to do. And if you all choose to stay in their program, then we probably will look at that, because I would like to make sure that the funding that they're receiving for our participation does get utilized by our citizens.
And your recommendation
My recommendation
is
is
that
to
we
stay in-
continue.
Mhm.
Governing body's pleasure?
I'll make the motion. My question is there any financial commitment from the city?
No. No, the only thing that you need to know is that if we are a part of their program and their designation, we are not eligible to apply for the state competitive funding for these programs, because we are part of their entitlement, meaning we get a certain amount of funding every year already.
But the flip side would be if we went alone, there's no assurance that we'd get anything.
Get anything, we'd have
At
to
least
apply.
doing this, we know that we've got a
And
proportional share.
And the way that these programs work, they're focused on low to moderate income folks. And while we do have a significant population of low to moderate income folks in our jurisdiction, for the most part, Northern Virginia communities as a whole are not as competitive with other areas of the state when it comes to the competitive
So
program.
we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. The Whitman Record recommendation and the SODEP proposal for subsurface utility engineering services.
Okay, this is some work that needs to be done for the utility relocation. The money is not going to WRA, it is going to their subcontractor, and it does need to be approved as soon as possible so we can get moving on this in order for this to be reimbursable as part of the right-of-way acquisition.
And these are specific, if I remember right, 19 borings that have to be done in and around the Manassas Drive Euclid interchange to be able to
For Columbia Gas
clearly
and Verizon.
identify the run locations of the utilities so that as we get ready to move earth, we don't have an accident.
Yeah, it is work that has to be done. It is 100% reimbursable if we can get it in and get it reimbursed before our August 30th deadline.
Is it guaranteed to be 100% reimbursable?
Yes.
Okay.
Question.
Yes. Well, wait a minute. We have staff recommendation.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Now, go.
It mentions getting a permit from the city. Are they required to get a permit from us in order for the subcontractor to do this work? Because I'm trying to get this started as soon as possible within the 30 days so we can get it reimbursed.
Where did you see the mention of a permit? Was it in their proposal?
It's in the subcontractor's proposal.
I mean, if that is required, then we'll certainly expedite that. I have to look at the language to see what permit they're talking about. But
It's towards the end, the last sentence of the subcontractor's proposal. It's right here.
What's the number on the bottom of the page?
42. That last paragraph, last sentence, in receipt of a City of Manassas Park permit, if necessary.
from notice to proceed.
I just-
Oh, okay, that's just their standard language for this, saying if they have to get a permit, they can't start until they do. I don't know offhand, I'll have to double check with Calvin if
Okay.
he's gonna require any kind of permit, but
All right.
they just put that in there as standard language.
We have a motion and a second. Other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. And then back to now item 8D, which is the ordinance proposal, Article 2, Operation of Vehicles. It would be out of Chapter 24 of the Traffic Code.
And we have Sergeant Matt Fallon here to make a presentation to you all for that and answer any
Hi, Matt,
questions you
welcome.
have.
Good to be back, Mayor, governing body, distinguished staff. Members of the City Council, my name is Sergeant Matthew Fallon. I'm a 13-year veteran of Manassas Park Police Department, presently assigned as a patrol supervisor for day shift patrol. My past duties assignments have included patrol officer, school resource officer, traffic unit officer, community resource officer, and gang task force detective. I'm speaking in front of you today in support and asking you to vote for the upcoming city ordinance, which will consist of bringing section 24-40 operator to give full-time and attention to the driving in the code of the city of Manassas Park. Well, I can see that there are a lot of multitaskings while driving a car, shifting, changing the radio station, or perhaps enjoying your favorite beverage. After all, we do have cup holders in our vehicles. Or perhaps having your dog sit on you, causing you to swerve towards a medium on Route 28 near Sheets. Or perhaps maybe looking for a business on your smartphone while turning onto Manassas Drive at 3 o'clock in the morning. Two such examples of which I stopped people last night while I was working. I believe that any confusion on this proposal would be the literal interpretation of the law versus the spirit of the law, in such that officers have common sense when we're investigating. We're going to cite people under probable cause. We're going to versus in common sense. If needed further, I will now answer any specific questions to the best of my abilities on this proposal.
Brian, I'm going to start with you. You had some specific questions.
Yeah, Matt, thanks for this. So a few comments, and I didn't get a chance to read it in detail till last night, so that's why I chimed in last night. So I appreciate the spirit of it, and safety. I appreciate that it's a softer citation, if you will, a way to sort of not go the full bore reckless driving, but something that indicates that there was an infraction, but less than that. And I certainly appreciate keeping the fines sort of local versus the state. There's no problem with that. My concern, and yeah, there's a risk of a little interpretation. I don't question the good judgment of our armed forces, police forces. But there is a risk of a little interpretation. I guess my concern is that the ordinance is written, and you use it as an example, you have your dog on your lap and you swerve into the median near Sheets.
Right.
My preference would be, the way it's written, it's a subjective assessment about whether or not an individual in a vehicle is paying attention, including or not, you may have been changing a radio station. Is there not a way to write this ordinance such that it is based on a visible indicator that suggests possible inattentiveness? Swerving a vehicle as a result of?
I would say yes and no. I'll give you an example. I think on the initial proposal, that was made. If you look at like the texting while driving law, looking at social media, looking at a website. Initially, the texting while driving law was a secondary offense, whereas officers would see see someone driving down the highway. We use Route 28 as an example. Speed limit's 35 miles an hour, stopping them for 57, while at the same time they see the person like this. Hey, what are you doing? If the person admits they're texting, then you have a bona fide. You could cite them under the text, the texting while driving. But if the person says, "Well, I was answering a phone," or if I was, my phone dropped, I picked it up. You don't have a violation. Specifically, I'll give you my spiel right now. I see someone driving down the highway with a phone in their hand, going like this. Right now, the way the texting law is written, you could look at your GPS. It's not a violation. However, for those of us that have the GPS that's built into not built into our vehicle, but like, I guess the separate units that you would say buy at Best Buy. I know that when I turn on my GPS in my car, it says, it has that little warning thing that said, don't use while driving, because it's common sense. But getting back to the initial texting violation, I see somebody driving down the street, doing this on their phone. I stop them, I walk up to them, and I ask them a simple question. I ask them if they're lost. The majority of the people look at me and they say, no, I'm not lost. In my mind, I'm thinking, well, if they're not lost, obviously they're not on their GPS, because on their GPS they would be, doing their thing. Subsequently, I then ask them, I say, what were you doing with your phone? Most people give me the frown face and they advise, well, yeah, officer, you got me. I was texting. I was on Facebook. Is that against the law? And then of course we cite them under reckless driving for the Facebook, or any other looking at a website. Reckless driving would be the appropriate site. Whereas if they say Facebook Messenger, or I'm texting, or looking at an email, that would fall under the texting site. When these cases come to court, however, if you cite someone for reckless driving because they're looking, in the example that I gave here, like they're looking for Gateway Auto in Manassas Park, the judges will ask, well, officer, can this go down to improper? Or sometimes the officer will say yes, sometimes the officer say no. Sometimes the judge will find the person guilty of reckless driving, or they'll reduce the charge from reckless driving down to improper driving. What's the difference? It's a matter of points, and it's a matter of money. Regardless, though, that money doesn't go to Manassas Park. It goes to the state. Me personally, and I have to say it this way. Personally, I don't really care where the money goes. I'm more about the safety aspect. But the aspect of bringing the failure to pay full time attention, it's kind of a catch-all and a win-win. The violator gets to be educated about their violation. They don't receive punitive points through DMV, and they pay a punishment, which is a fee. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, and you provide the rationale for it, which I support. I guess it's not clear why this can't be worded, same intent,
Sure.
but worded based on the result of inattentiveness versus inattentiveness. Does that make sense? I suspect you were involved in the crafting of the ordinance, right? If I don't mind being cited for swerving a car because I was looking at Facebook, I mind being cited for being assessed as inattentive for looking at Facebook. Is that making sense?
Yeah, and I don't have it in front of me because I didn't have a packet. What would you want to change the language to say?
While you're looking, I think Chief wants to say something.
Sure.
I think I might be able to address your concern there. Anything that would be written under that code would be allowable to write under the current state code and city code of reckless driving. In other words, there wouldn't be no additional type traffic violations noted. It just gives us the ability to issue a ticket at a lesser offense to the individual. It would not give us any ability to add any additional type of traffic violation. Those violations that would be cited under here already would fall under that reckless driving, so failure to maintain control of the vehicle.
Okay.
It's just a matter of to the extent, and that goes into the code when they reduce it to an improper. That's what they look at, that intent. And one thing that our code does, it allows the officer to write that instead of waiting for it to go to court. But if you notice, the penalties are lesser on ours. So actually for our citizens,
The subjectivity that he's talking about is actually already available to you all under state code.
exactly,
Okay.
it's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's if you read the state code, it gives us the same subject.
Okay.
So
All right.
I hope that answers the question.
This is only on a secondary offense, correct?
It's a
I still don't like
It's
it.
a primary offense, so you can actually,
Not very trusting of government.
Yeah, all of them are primary offenses, sir.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
Strict.
so my question, I'm going to just ask some simple questions, because you had given these examples, looking at one of the simple examples, it says using a cell phone or a smartphone, and it's now a primary offense, and if I hold my phone in my hand and drive.
Not necessarily. What I was expressing on the initial letter on the 15th was that using like the examples of texting, using the cell phone, it's a cognitive behavior, because you have to actually, you have to think about it. I mean, it's the distraction. I'm looking, but I'm driving. Virginia, I mean, Virginia, unlike D.C., military reservations, state of Maryland, you can use your cell phone. Again, personally, I hope one day we actually pass that law, because it's, these things are very, very, very dangerous. But that would be, you're still allowed to use your cell phone. That's not the issue. On occasion, though, investigating several accidents in my tenure here, I'll be like, what happened? Officer, my phone rang, and I reached down to pick it up, and next thing I know, I hit the person in the back of the vehicle. Situations such as that, in the past, we would cite for reckless driving. It would come to court, as long as I guess the civil, the insurance was paid. Some cases would be dismissed. Some cases would be reduced to improper. If there's an injury involved in that such example where they would drop their phone, it would probably stay at reckless driving if someone was hurt.
Just to add to what he's saying, this list that he provided here is just background information. All you all are approving is the ordinance, which doesn't list all of these specific things.
I know, but, just to quote, looking at the officer, the ordinance is written in such a fashion, it's a catch-all. Like you use those words, it's a catch-all, and I have a problem with catch-all. I personally want us to have tougher rules about distracted driving, but I just don't want to agree to pass an ordinance which is so broad. It could be interpreted anyway. Like the title just says, operator to give full time and attention to driving. That's completely subjective, but it cannot be disputed.
But and I understand where you're coming from, but we're already enforcing this. It's just somebody else is getting paid for it because we're charging a higher code. You wouldn't be enacting anything that we aren't already doing, just so you know.
Sir, under 46.2.869, it was improper driving. I, as a law enforcement officer, any law enforcement officer in Virginia for that matter, I can't cite a person under improper driving. I can cite someone for reckless driving. Improper driving is it's a lesser offense than reckless driving. Per the code, it says, upon the trial of any person charged with reckless driving where the degree of culpability is cite, the court in its discretion may find the accused not guilty of reckless driving but guilty of improper driving. However, an attorney for the Commonwealth or city prosecutor may reduce a charge of the reckless driving to improper driving at any time prior to the court's decision and shall notify the courts of such change. Proper driving is punishable as a traffic infraction by a fine of not more than $500. I don't want to say catch-all, but it's basically the same definition. I mean, it's a lesser version of reckless driving that's better for the violator and better for, I would say, the city as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I know we're trying to pass this ordinance so we can actually collect those fees as a city instead of going to the county or the court system. But I'm gonna just pose this question to Kim and Dean. Can you guys bring this back and reword it in such a way that it's not so broad? I share the same concerns as Brian. So plus, the violation, it says, not punishable by a fine not to exceed $250. $250 is quite a lot of money. Plus, you have a $67 court fees, and then on top of it, the council passed, a couple of meetings ago for that electronic ticket. There was another ordinance which charged another $10, or how much was that? Okay. So.
Right now, they're paying $500, up to $500, right, under the other one?
Okay. So it just adds up, so if you look at the maximum fees of $250 plus 67 plus 5, here that being around $320. So I just feel uncomfortable supporting this ordinance the way it's written. Maybe if we can, like reword it, to make it a little bit more limited scope, I'll be okay with it.
Can we get some direction from a kind of consensus so that we know what the?
Well, let me ask if this comes closer to the mark, and it seems to me that subparagraph 1A is the gremlin paragraph that folks are concerned about. So if we change the language to read something along the lines of no person shall operate a motor vehicle upon the streets, highways of the city, and change it from that point forward to say, in a manner that demonstrates inattention or distraction of the driver by unsafe operation of the vehicle. So that there is a behavior that has been demonstrated, and it's then not that omnibus catch-all. And the clear unsafe operation of the vehicle means that there has to be something that occurred, the vehicle went out of the lines, went, into the median or whatever, but it gives a more narrowing of the aperture, I think. Is
like
that acceptable?
That's a good suggestion.
That makes it a secondary
Sergeant
offense. I
Fowler,
agree.
would you agree to that? Because that's actually putting in the ordinance that secondary offense into this ordinance, where you have now the behavior that's driving the reason why you've got to pull over for improper driving.
Yeah, Dean?
Well, I mean, the county of Fairfax, as Brian pointed out, if you turn on the other side there at the bottom, it's pretty straightforward. It's not quite as, it just says you're failing to keep the vehicle under proper control at all times.
That's kind of where I was headed with this, something along those lines.
I like that because it's Fairfax and that's been tested, because, they're very big and they have a lot of these things.
Is that acceptable?
That's acceptable.
Fairfax, that's fine.
I think it meets the objective of the original, which is safety first, a way to keep fines in the city, and a way for you to use your discretion to offer a lesser charge than having to go full bore reckless driving. It seems to have the same intent, I think. Yes.
That's a good suggestion.
Would you be willing to go ahead and amend the ordinance tonight so that 1A or 2440A reads the same as what we just indicated for Fairfax County?
Does it do for the PD what they need it to do?
Most definitely. When I was in discussion of bringing this to Mr. Alexander, I actually contacted Fairfax County, their police department Commonwealth attorney. So I agree.
Okay, so you could adopt it, changing A to read how Fairfax reads. Would you want to change B to lower that fine from $250 also?
I would.
I would, yes.
So what would you suggest that be reduced to?
Can I ask a question? Is it discretionary? Do you have to levy the $250, or is it anywhere from below that?
Judges have the discretion to.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Judges have the discretion based upon the severity of the charge to.
Okay, so it's not the officer that has the discretion, it's the judge that has it. Okay.
Can we say no greater than $250?
Right.
That's what it currently.
That's what it says.
And right now, it's up to $500 for improper driving, which, and they issue that because of the gravity. So if someone really needs to be awakened or shaken up, they'll go ahead and issue or fine them for the full amount.
You know what? I'm doing this the wrong way. How many accidents occur in the city of Manassas Park due to distracted driving or improper driving?
Sir, I don't specifically have those statistics available for you.
Mm-hmm.
But on the average, for like a serious accident with injury, someone goes to the hospital, or the fire department shows up and someone says, I don't want to go. We charge reckless driving because it's by definition. Let's see. Irresponsible of the maximum speed limits permitted by law. 20 miles over the speed limit, for speeding, would be charged with reckless driving.
Mm-hmm.
Any person who drives a vehicle on a highway too recklessly or at a speed or in the manner as so to endanger the life, limb, or property of any person shall be guilty of reckless driving.
Or how many drivers do you see when you're on duty that are distracted and doing one of the following in this bullets of texting or grooming or talking to passengers? Just anecdotally, how many do you see?
Well, let's see. I can't give you a roundabout, but I'll say this. I like to cite people for texting while driving. If you see a police car parked near Guapos on 28, that's me. If I could reach the violator, I'd say if I'm sitting in that location for an hour, I'd say about maybe 20, 25 people are doing it. I'll stop as many people as I can, but if I can't get in the traffic to reach them, off they go. I can't, and based on the definition of how my tact and how I determine whether or not whether they're doing, the majority of them are texting. The majority of them are looking at like some sort of website, and the people that I do stop that are saying, "Well, officer, I was just on my phone. I like to talk to it on the speaker version," and they'll show me, and I'll apologize, sir, ma'am. Thank you. Have a nice day. So, if that answers your question. And I can't give you I can't stand here and give you an exact statistic on how many people we cite for reckless driving.
Knowing this was coming, I did one of those unofficial, just Manassas Park to Arlington, a couple or 3 days, and I quit counting after 100. Knowing the things that we would be looking at, and the predominance are the ones who are head down and texting or doing something, not talking. Now in California, you got to be 100% hands-free. So I'm sensitive to that because a number of my folks have been hit with $50 or $100 tickets for using. We're not talking about that. We're talking about some other form of distraction in a device.
Okay.
Not talking.
Okay.
So back to the fine question.
Yeah.
Do you want to reduce it from 250, and if so, to what number?
So I would be okay not to exceed 150.
I'd be okay with that.
Yep.
Does this go to court automatically? Like, if you were to cite me today,
They can come in and pay it, can't they?
but what do I pay? $250 or take my chances?
Oh.
If it's the way it stands right now, is it standing at 250 or 150? Or
Is that 250?
Well, right now it reads 250.
if it's an accident case, you have to physically show up to court because the judge has to arraign you. If you show up to court and plead guilty, it's settled right there then and there. If it's an accident case, you have to come to court. If you're just cited for failure to pay full-time attention, I believe it would be that you have the ability to prepay the fine, I believe.
To the maximum, not discretionary below that. So I would either pay the $250, forego the hassle of the courts, or go to court and have it reduced.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have a recommendation, at least from two members, to drop it from 250 to 150. Is that acceptable to everybody?
I have one more question. The 60, I don't know, Suhas, where you got the $67 court cost, but if this isn't going to court and I just pay my ticket,
You still have to pay the cost.
You still have to pay it.
still, and that's what it is, 67?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So it still is.
Get knowledge?
220.
There's times when you physically show up in court and you give your explanation to the judge. Sometimes the judges suspend the fine, a couple of dollars. Sometimes the judges want to be paid just like everyone else. I hate to say it that way, but the court fees pay for the people that work in the courthouse. So that'll never get suspended.
And if I'm driving, or if someone's driving, and they're using their cell phone for GPS, and they're looking down, then they can be pulled over, right? That's within the ordinance.
Again, sir, I'm not going to know that until I make contact with you.
Right.
I stop. Let's say I stop 100 people a month for this offense. It's probably a lot less. Based on what you tell me is going to determine whether or not, and based on what you tell me and what I see.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the code right now is written for, like, say, texting while driving, if you're looking at your GPS, you're fine. And people say, I'm just looking at my GPS.
Right.
I tell them to have a nice day, and that's that. But if they say, well, I'm looking to find City Hall, of Manassas Park, and they show me the city webpage, I'm going to cite them for reckless driving because they're not paying attention to driving. They're
Right.
They're moving 3,000 pound vehicle down the road, wanted.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? All right, I believe we have a proposal for two changes. Subsection 1A is replaced with the Fairfax County text, and I believe in 1B, the fine value drops from $250 to $150.
And I think the section name should be changed to match Fairfax too, since you're changing the language. So instead of time and attention to driving, it would be vehicle to be kept under control.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the title would change also.
Correct. And I think instead of highways, it should be probably streets, which is one thing that we had originally. Streets are highways of the city.
Okay?
Yeah, I
All right.
can read it to you as I have it modified, if you'd like me
Go.
to. Okay, now it says vehicle to be kept under control. A, no person shall operate a motor vehicle upon the streets or highways of the city, failing to keep the vehicle under proper control at all times. Any violation of this section shall constitute a traffic infraction not reportable to the Department of Motor Vehicles, but punishable by a fine not more than $150.
I'll make that in the form of a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Yep.
Aye.
Quick comment. I just wanted to, is Matt still over there?
Yeah, he's right there.
Matt, I just wanted to say thank you. I know this was in response to the city manager's call for some new and fresh ideas, and it achieved, I think, several objectives. And the fact that we kicked it around, don't take that as meaning we don't appreciate the idea. We
That's how
do.
government works.
And this is a good one. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For
That's
presenting.
all.
All right,
One
we
win for
have
the city, thank you.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Well done, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, the enactment. We've just approved the ordinance, effective as of,
Immediately.
Adoption.
that's my point. I wanted to make sure that we said that, because that's the one thing we didn't.
No
There is no
call.
30-day delay. This is effective immediately.
Can we publish this on the website, on our website to inform the citizens?
It'll be made a part of
There's a second,
Municode
right?
and
Yes.
put in that way.
So we want to publicize it for 30 days?
Well, what I was going to suggest is administrative guidance to the police department is,
Warnings for
let's
30 days?
not issue tickets for the first 30 or 45 days, but we issue warnings as a break-in period.
And can we put it up on those
Variable
roadway-
message.
Yeah, those yellow boards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay?
That's,
I think that takes care of it. So the next item is the manager's report.
Yes, I have one item I need to discuss with you, and I emailed this to you all earlier. They found some additional wall and beam damage on the water park that needs to be fixed. The total amount is an additional $14,500, but given the savings we've achieved on some of these other items, it can still be done within the amount that you guys have already approved. I just need your approval for that invoice since it's over $10,000.
So what we're doing is we're approving the work, but the funding that pays for it is to be,
You've already appropriated
it's
it.
come from savings from other parts of the
Correct.
project.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none. All's in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next item is closed meeting.
I recommend the governing body go into closed meeting to discuss the assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, and disciplining of specific public employees, and consult with the city attorney regarding a legal matter requiring the provision of legal advice by the city attorney pursuant to paragraphs 1 and 7 of subsection 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia.
2 items? How many items under each of those?
One item for consultation with city attorney, I believe, unless there's an additional one that I'm not aware of.
I'm just wanting to be sure that we,
And there are 3 separate matters that involve the discussion of specific public employees.
okay.
Could be
that's-
multiple
just so everybody
public
understands,
employees,
there's 3 for subsection 1 and 1 item for subsection whatever it is.
7.
7. All right, we have a recommendation to go into closed meeting from the city attorney, governing body's pleasure.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second in discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We will go into closed meeting in 5 minutes in this room. Give us a chance for a quick break.